Welcome everyone to the Pedagogy Committee's Lunch and Learn. We are so excited to have Miles DeCastro with us. He owns North Country Winds and is also the instrument repair technician at the Crane School of Music and has extensive repair knowledge. And we are so excited today to have him talk about the show must go on, repairs and maintenance you can do. So thank you so much, Miles, and I will turn it over to you.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone for showing up on your weekend. I really appreciate it. Yeah, just like Julianne said, I'm going to plow through some quick repair tips and tricks that might bail you out of a jam, maybe bail one of your students out of a jam. Um, Unfortunately, I can't train you to be a repair technician in 60 minutes. That takes at least 65 minutes, so we'll run out of time for that. So yeah, we'll get to what we get through. We'll save some time for questions at the end, and yeah, I'm going to start talking at you right now. So here we go. Um, first, first thing that comes up quite often. Oh no, my tenon cork is missing on my clarinet and the concert's in 5 minutes, right? It never happens 5 days out. It always happens 5 minutes out. So even if you were the best recorker in the world, the cement that we're going to use to put a new cork on takes 10 minutes to dry. So even if you're a great recorker, it's not going to help you out in a jam right before the concert. So we need to put an emergency cork on here, and it's not even going to be made of cork at all. We're actually going to use tape for this. So there's, as you probably noticed, more than one type of tape out there. So I brought a few tapes with me, and some of these tapes are okay. Some of these tapes are very bad to put on clarinets. Please don't do it. So here's the variety of tapes I just found lying around my shop. Duct tape. Please don't put duct tape on your instrument under any circumstances. I would really appreciate it if that's just way too sticky. It's going to cause damage. Ditto packing tape. If you have packing tape around, we do not want that on our instrument. Electrical tape. Okay, it's way less strong than packing tape or duct tape. So maybe electrical tape. What I don't like about electrical tape for this is there's too much residue that's going to be left behind. If these first three tapes I'm talking about were your only choices, okay, I guess electrical tape's better than nothing, so you can at least play the concert. But hopefully you've got some better options available. So please, no electrical tape either. Two options that are okay. I've got painter's tape right here. It's essentially a less sticky masking tape. Either masking tape or painter's tape are okay. If you have a choice, painter's tape is definitely the go-to. It's usually blue, occasionally green. That's going to be my favorite for replacing a missing cork. I also have Teflon tape here, also known as PTFE tape and also known as plumber's tape. You can get this in any hardware store. This would do the trick as well. However, if the cork is completely missing, you're going to need like a whole roll of this and maybe more than 5 minutes to wrap it around because this stuff is incredibly thin. So you could use it, but it's not my favorite choice when the cork is like completely missing. So when there's no cork at all, painter's tape is going to be our go-to. And it does not need to be pretty, right? Our goal here is to have the show go on. So I would recommend maybe tearing yourself a good length of it, tearing it down the middle, and just do whatever you got to put that on the tenon there, wrap it around a few times until the barrel will stick on, and go on with the show. And then the day after the show, please get that to a real repair shop so you can get an appropriate cork on there. Don't let it go all year like that. So let's see. Oh, that one went on pretty good, actually. I was just kind of guesstimating how much tape I needed, but that's pretty good. There's no way that's an airtight seal. We're going to be it's going to be a bit of a compromise when the person is playing it. It's not going to respond probably quite as well as it needs to, but this sure beats not being able to assemble the instrument at all. If you're really in a jam and say you accidentally put too much tape on there and then it can be kind of time consuming to try to get it off there, you can grease the thing. You can cork grease your emergency tape cork if you really had to. So there's nothing wrong with that. I'll show you right now. I use lots of cork grease, so I keep it in this handy syringe here. but there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And now you've got an instrument that will actually function, and you can get through the show, and then you can deal with an appropriate repair the next day. Now, sometimes you might have a cork that's damaged, but most of the cork's still there. All right. And yeah, I can get the bell on there. It might drop off halfway through, but yeah, I can temporarily stick the bell on there since like 3/4 of the cork is still there. But this is the spot where I really like Teflon tape. My go-to for Teflon tape is when the cork is damaged, but still mostly intact. And the same could happen. You could use this even for if the cork wasn't damaged. Maybe it's just hasn't been replaced in a really, really long time, and it's too thin. So the bell's like trying to fall off on you in the middle of your concert. That's no good. So just a couple layers of that stuff. It tears quite easily. And that does a really good job. And now that bell, that's not going anywhere. All right, we got a nice secure grip there. Brought two kinds of Teflon tape to show you. That's one that I just got at the local Ace in Potsdam, New York, and that's pretty much exactly what you'll see at the hardware store or if you shop for it on Amazon or anything like that. I'm not sure where they get it from, but there's a repair supplier called musicmedic.com. You should absolutely check them out. They sell all kinds of good repair tools and supplies, but they just started stocking this Blue Monster tape. And it's really nice. I feel like it's a little slicker than other Teflon tapes. I think the blue looks pretty neat. It's a little easier to work with. And also it's a little thicker. So if you really needed to make up a big gap where your cork is damaged or completely missing, maybe try out this stuff. So yeah, it's just kind of just a slightly nicer Teflon tape. Teflon tape is quite cheap, whether you get this one, whether you get the basic one from your local hardware store. But regardless, that's going to be my go-to for emergency cork repairs. Okay. Moving on. Anybody ever gotten a stuck swab? Yeah, no, nobody. Okay, cool. That's what I figured. But just in case that ever happens, if a stuck swab ever happens to you, first thing, please don't panic. All right. The only times I ever see a stuck swab being a real big job for me to repair is when somebody's panicked and they've just mercilessly tried to keep yanking it through the way it got stuck. And that's what's going to turn a little problem into a big problem. I'm going to show you a couple ways to prevent it, and then I'm going to show you a way to repair it that will work at least 90% of the time, I promise. You just need one very specific tool. So to prevent it, please get yourself a quality swab. That would be my first tip. I brought some quality swabs here that I like a lot. So there's just 5 different options right there. These are ones just I stock in my shop, and there's more of them out there. First thing is, let's think about the material. I hate that cheap, like felt kind of swabs, and I don't even really like cotton swabs so much anymore. The cotton's a lot better than the felt, but either one is just not going to be so thick. It's going to bunch up. It's going to be thick. It's going to bunch up easily. It's 2024. Let's use some better materials that are at our disposal. A lot of people like a good silk swab. I don't have a problem with that. I like a silk swab too. Hodge is probably the most common one I see. Good stuff. Nothing wrong with that. It's not my favorite, however. And this is just me personally speaking. Silk is good. I think microfiber is best, though. So here's 4 different microfiber swabs. Here, BG, BAM, Van Doren, and Yamaha. So I would definitely recommend a microfiber swab. I think it's the best mix of being slick, but also being really absorbent. And unlike a silk swab, you can throw it right in the laundry when you need to wash it. So make sure you're washing your swab once in a while. And I don't want to spend a bunch of time washing my swab by hand. I want to get back to repairing instruments. So when my swabs in the shop get dirty, I just throw them right in the laundry. So beyond that, so you've got a nice microfiber swab. It's going to be nice and slick to help you not get stuck. There's another feature that some swabs have that can help it not get stuck. I don't think the BG has it, but let's pop this open and check it out. It's a very good swab, but it does not have the feature that I'm looking for, okay? It's got a nice weight on the end, really nice material. I do love that they say it'll last 5 years. That's very cool. Love BG products. It's a very good product. Not going to be my number one choice, though, because it's missing a feature that I think swab should have. Okay, you might be able to guess this, but be thinking about what feature I might be referring to here. I think the BAM does have this feature. Ah, yes. Okay, so very similar product. All right, they might make these things in the same factory and just stamp different names on them. Who knows? But same, but look what this has at the other end. It's got a tail. Yes, this tail can really, really bail you out of trouble. So if I was swabbing my instrument, and I got it stuck to where I couldn't pull it through anymore, I can bail myself out of that by grabbing the tail and going right back the way it was coming from. That's a really nice feature to have. I would recommend anytime you're shopping for a swab, make sure your swab has that feature. I'm not sure offhand if the Van Doren one has it or not. Let's check it out. Van Doren one, no tail on the Van Doren one. So very nice microfiber swab. Not going to be my top choice, though, just because it's missing that tail. And then my absolute favorite, this is the swab I've been recommending for all woodwinds for like 10 years, was the Yamaha green swab. The one and only thing I didn't like about it is it didn't have the tail. Well, Yamaha discontinued the green swab. They now have the blue swab, and guess what the blue swab has that the green swab didn't have? Ah, yes, it's got the tail. So love that it has the tail. So this is now my new favorite. Yamaha green was my old favorite. Yamaha blue is my new favorite. Nice microfiber material. They have actually improved the microfiber material. I was just reading up on this like 2 days ago. Apparently it's 10 times more absorbent than the green one, and it dries 30 times faster, according to Yamaha's website. So the green one was already my favorite, and they've improved upon that. So Yamaha blue swab is my absolute go-to. They make them in different sizes. This medium size can handle anything from an E-flat clarinet up to an alto clarinet. They make a size large for bass clarinets, and they also make a saxophone size swab, which I've actually been really enjoying using the saxophone size on bass clarinets lately. So it was time for new swabs in my shop. So I actually just threw out all my green swabs, upgraded to the blue swabs. So let's go back to a swab that didn't have the tail and say we got in trouble here. Actually, I'll bring this up a little bit so I think we can see it better this way. So go into swab, start swabbing, and then, oh no, I'm stuck. It's panic time. What are we going to do? Don't panic, all right? If you don't panic, this will work. You need one very specific tool to get this out. This is a 7-inch alligator forceps. I got it just at a medical supply company. It will absolutely save the day. Go in, grab the swab. As long as nobody panicked, that shouldn't be incredibly stuck in there. It might take you 2 or 3 tries, but you can pull it out just that easily. I promise. If nobody panics, that will work at least 9 times out of 10. That tool will save your bacon. So that's the 7-inch one. That should be just about fine for any soprano clarinet, even an oboe. If you're ever working with oboes, if you're working with bigger instruments, bassoons, bass clarinets, you may want to get a 12-inch alligator forceps. So I keep both of these on hand. I use them several times a year when people bring me their stuck swabs. So very good tools to have on hand, to be sure. It sure beats the alternative. I don't know if anybody's ever seen any other ways to remove a stuck swab. This is what I only have to go to this if somebody panics now and makes a bad problem into a really, really bad problem. So if you can see that, that is a flute cleaning rod that I cut off the business end of a screw and soldered it to the end. The idea behind this would be I'm going into the instrument, trying to jab the swab. Then once I've successfully pierced the swab, I will start rotating the tool around and the swab will follow the threads on the screw and it will start to wrap itself around and eventually I can yank it out. I'll go to this if I absolutely need to. I absolutely need to maybe twice a year or so. And again, it's only because somebody panicked. All right, they turned a bad problem into a really bad problem. Let's avoid this. We can see maybe some problems that this might have, right? It's very sharp. I don't want to be stabbing the inside of your instrument with this tool. The forceps are going to be a much, much better choice. Okay, clear some room here and we'll talk sticky pads. Okay, so 4 things that in theory can be used to unstick a pad. I'm sure some of you are even thinking it like, oh, I know what to do for a sticky pad. You use a dollar bill, right? Well, thing about that is, first off, it only works with American money. So if you've been to countries other than the United States, you might notice the money isn't like cottony papery like our money is. If you go, here's a Canadian 5. It's very plasticky. All right, so that won't work first and foremost. So it's got to be an American piece of money. Definitely can't be a Canadian 1, right? That's never going to work. That's not even, no, that's definitely not going to work. So the dollar bill, funny thing about the dollar bill, the trick is the ink on American money will react with leather pads and it will work if it's a leather pad. Do you have leather pads on your clarinet? Most clarinets don't even have leather pads. So there's absolutely no point in using the dollar bill. This Yamaha student level clarinet, a lot of the pads have been replaced, but they're all synthetic and they come with synthetic pads. I might get some unstickiness, but that's only because I pulled off some crud from the pad on the dollar bill and I could have used any piece of paper in the world, right? I could have just used any notepad paper. I could have used printer paper. I could have used the menu from a Sizzler. It doesn't matter. It's just anything that comes off is just because you got some of the crud on the piece of paper. So what's wrong with the dollar bill? Why am I railing against the dollar bill? Money is disgusting. This is the reason. I don't want something that who knows who has handled this thing, who knows what they were doing before they handled it, who knows if they wash their hands afterwards. I don't want this thing getting on my instrument. And you shouldn't want it on your instrument either, or on one of your students' instruments. So first and foremost, it only works with leather pads. So there's a leather bass clarinet pad. And let's see, there's a leather soprano clarinet pad. Here, I'll put it on the powder paper as it's black, probably a little easier to see. So it would provide a little bit of unsticky action on those 2 things. But it won't work if you have a cork pad. It won't work if you have a Valentino Masters pad. It won't work if you have a traditional skin pad. It won't work if you have a black greenback pad. It won't work if you have a Valentino Masters pad. So vast majority of the pads out there, it doesn't provide any true unsticky action. And also it's gross. Let's just not use it at all. Let's use something much better. For the longest time, the only thing that was really readily available was Yamaha powder paper. Usually this comes in 50 packs and it's pretty much just like cigarette paper and it has a real fine powder on it. For the longest time, that was my go-to and it was the only thing I would recommend. There's more choices now. It's very nice. BG and Key Leaves make very similar products here. Key Leaves, they call it the Spit Sponge. They make it in 2 different sizes, so it's a big one. They marketed it as saxophone, but I'd also probably use that on most bass clarinet pads. And then they got the little guy that they recommend for pretty much all the smaller woodwinds. Good stuff. BG's equivalent, I believe they only make the smaller one here. I'm going to open the BG just because that package is easier to open. And it's just like slightly textured. Yeah, it's a real nice product there. So if I had, say, my side key here, my alternate BF sharp was sticky, I would stick it under there, regardless of what kind of pad I have. I would gently pull that out, cleans it up nice, and it really gets rid of the stickiness quite well. If I had an extremely sticky one, I would just do that 2 or 3 times until the sticky goes away. So that's really good stuff. All that said, Yamaha powder paper is still my #1 choice. As a musician or an educator, 1 pack of this should last you a decade at least. North Country Winds has been open almost 8 years. I'm on my 2nd package of doing this. So it's even somebody who unsticks pads quite often, because I see a lot of dirty instruments. I still don't go through them that fast. So 1 pack should last you a very, very long time, maybe even your whole career. But it's as simple as can be. You just put the paper underneath the pad, let the key close, gently drag it out, and usually 1 swipe is enough. And I would say on each sheet of these, you can get maybe a dozen swipes or so. So yeah, definitely my #1 go-to choice. I do hear once in a while somebody say, well, it's got that powder on it. Is that going to get in the mechanism? I guess the answer to that is yes, that is going to happen. But when's the last time you had your instrument professionally cleaned? Or if you're a band director and you're using one of the school's instruments, when's the last time that was professionally cleaned? That little tiny bit of virtually microscopic powder getting into the mechanism is the least of our concerns. All right, that's not going to hurt anything. You would probably have to do that every single day for years and years before it was a significant amount of the powder getting into the mechanism. So don't worry about that. I've seen people who are concerned about that. Don't be concerned about that. Clean the pad, get it unsticky, and just get back to business. So you can get back to making music. Oh. The throat A screw. Okay, it's a good one. Why doesn't my instrument work all of a sudden? Okay, so we are going to talk about this screw right here. All right. Its official name is the throat A to A flat adjustment screw. A lot of people will just call it the A screw, the A adjustment screw. The screw is actually located on the A flat key. So it actually sits over the A, and it contacts the A flat key, or contacts the A key when you lift the A key. It bumps into the A flat key, and they both open at the same time. But a lot of people call it the A screw, even though it actually sits on the A flat key. Regardless of what you call it, please be aware of that screw. Here is the scenario that's going to happen. All right, I'm going to do exactly what a parent would do, most likely what dad would do. They think they're being helpful. They see their kid's instrument. They see a screw that's not as tight as it possibly can be. So they think they're doing their kid a big favor, be like, oh, I'm going to tighten that screw. They tighten the screw, and something along the lines of the following sounds come out. So hopefully Zoom didn't cut out and you could actually hear that squeak and squawk that I just made. But basically, the instrument completely stops working. The student will come to you with a problem and they'll say, oh, it just stopped working. It's only squeaky. It only plays up high. I can't play low. Something along those lines. And you ask them, well, did something happen to your instrument? And they'll say no. And then you ask them 2 or 3 more times and they still say no. Then eventually they'll say, oh, my dad saw a loose screw on the instrument, so he tightened it for me. Aha, we have found the issue. So we want that screw to be loose. If you're unsure of how much to loosen it a bunch. The instrument will still function quite well, even if the screw is looser than it needs to be. So I'm going to loosen it a ridiculous amount right here. The instrument will still play. So it sounds fine. The only thing where it's going to be off a little bit is throat A and A flat, especially student level instruments, not a great note anyway. So that's with it way too loose, and the instrument still completely functions. Be on the lookout for that. I'll show you how to dial it in. I'll see if I can get up real close to the camera here to put it in its ideal spot. So you need something called lost motion here. So hopefully we can see that I'm going to move the A key. I'm moving the A key right now, and it's not lifting the A flat key, right? I've got that little bit of wiggle in there, and then it engages the A flat key. Okay, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Then it contacts the A flat key. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Then it lifts the A flat key. You need that wiggle, okay? Now, in a perfect world, we want that wiggle with as little wiggle as possible. Err on the side of having too much wiggle. If you err on the side of no wiggle, the instrument stops working and it makes those yucky, squeaky sounds. So I'm going to dial that in a little bit here. So that's closer. That's still a bit much, but see, I got that little bit of wiggle. Then it engages the A flat key. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Raises the A flat key. All right. Make sure you got some wiggle there. Okay. You're not going to be able to play low notes without that wiggle. If you're really concerned that somebody is going to mess with that after you've got it dialed in, you can lock it in and make it really hard for somebody to mess with that screw. A couple ways you can do that. Clear nail polish is a good way to do it. It doesn't need to be clear, actually, but any nail polish will do. Clear will probably look the nicest since we won't be able to see it. But seriously, just a little tiny dab. Don't even have to take anything apart. Little tiny dab of this stuff right on top of the screw there. Let it dry for 5 minutes. That will make it much harder to turn that screw, but you'll still be able to turn that screw when you absolutely need to. Hopefully it's just enough that that dad sees that it's hard to move and gives up, or that the player sees that it's too hard to move and gives up. And then there's something else you can use. It's called Loctite. Let's see here. Should be more specific, actually. I should say the brand is called Loctite. Loctite makes all kinds of adhesives, and the product that they make is Thread Locker. Okay? If you're ever going to use this, make sure you are using Thread Locker Blue, not Thread Locker Red. Yes, I don't know. I would like to speak to the marketing team who decided to put Thread Locker Blue in a red bottle, but please make sure that it says Thread Locker Blue on there, because blue is reversible. You can heat up blue just a little bit and the bond will break. Thread Locker Red is permanent. That's meant for something that gets screwed in once and never comes apart. We're talking like an aircraft carrier or something like that. We don't want that. We want to be able to take the clarinet apart, when it needs to. So you would actually take just a little drop of this stuff, pretty much exactly like I did for the clear nail polish. It's meant to travel along the screw and get into the threads. Just one little drop of that. So I've got it right on there. Get too much on there, no problem. Just dab it off with a little paper towel or Q-tip or something like that. And so I would just leave it there, let it sit, let gravity do its thing. So I would kind of prop up the clarinet so it's lying down on my bench, face up like that. Let the thread locker work its way around the screw. Oh, maybe 30, 60 minutes, something like that. And you should have a nice locked screw. So Yeah, but be really careful of this. It's pretty important to use proper terminology on this. So thread locker right there. A lot of people will call it Loctite. That can run into some problems because check out this bottle of super glue that's on my bench. Oh, who makes that? Loctite. All right, they make lots of different adhesives. So just saying like, oh, stick some Loctite on there, it'll be good. Oh, okay, here's some Loctite. I'm going to put Loctite on there. Then we've got a big super gluey mess and we've made a much bigger problem out of it. Okay. I like to call this little trick the claw. So you know how when we're learning clarinet, or we're teaching clarinet and we're learning low F and low E, right? So you teach somebody low F, second lowest note on the instrument, right? You probably got your right pinky down to learn that note. And then you learn low E right after that. And they tell you the fingering for low E is the same as low F. And then you just add low E lever right here, right? And with any luck, low F and low E come out when you do that. And I don't know, I didn't check this clarinet too carefully, but I'm pretty sure that'll work. Low F and low E come out like that. Then you get halfway through the method book and you find out you've been lied to all this time. Low E should come out with just one pinky, right? You shouldn't need both pinkies. You should just need one pinky. I am convinced this is the reason they do this is because this adjustment is out like all the time. Okay. I'm going to play low F and then I'm going to play low E with just one pinky, like you're supposed to be able to, like the book tells you. Oh, hey, low E not working so great when I'm only using one pinky. What on earth is going on there? We have a regulation leak. If you use both pinkies, you can overcome that regulation leak. If you use only one pinky, you need this dialed in pretty good. I see this all the time, pretty much every student level instrument I see, and then even a lot of pro instruments I see to a very small degree, but this leakage is there. And it's just because we did some of the longest keys on the instrument. Those are going to flex over time. Even people who are really careful with it just need this adjusted every once in a while. And if you got students who, they're not used to being able to handle the instrument, they might be using these keys kind of as for leverage as you put the thing together. So they're actually gonna bend these keys and get it out of adjustment quite often. But the issue here is, see if I can get it in the camera, and if I can, I'll bend it some more. So these two keys need to go down at the same time. Okay, here's your EB key, here's your FC key. They should work exactly perfectly together. I should be able to press my low E lever here, the EB lever, and that closes both of those keys. All right, I'm going to close that lever. Hey, they both went down, but hey, check that out on your FC key. That's too little. Let me make this a bigger problem. So.
And Miles, next time you play, just make sure your original sound is on at the top of the screen.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Not sure if I see where that is.
Top left, you might see original sound from musicians, or it might be a setting you have to do in your audio.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. Thank you for the heads up on that. I've messed this instrument up pretty far here. So pressing the lever, both keys should go up and down at the same time. Oh, but look at that. It's not. Look at how much wiggle the FC key has here. And so you'd be able to play that note with both pinkies, right? Because I'm going to press down that key with one pinky, then I'm going to press down the other key with the other pinky. That works. But as soon as I go to only using one pinky, we got a leak there. Okay. What are we going to do about this? And why was I calling it the claw? You are going to fix it by making a claw. Okay. Left hand, first finger. All right. Turn that into the claw. The claw is going to be placed underneath the crow's foot, which is that little piece right there. Not really important. Look for your right hand pinky cluster and just kind of cram your claw under that. All right. So your finger is wedged between this cluster of 4 keys and the body of the instrument. Right hand, take your thumb, put it on the FC key. All right, with your claw wedged in there, and you are going to flex the FC key. You're going to flex the FC key toward the body of the instrument. You might have to do it a couple times. Let's see how I did. We're closer, but I got to go some more. So you might be able to see that I'm closer, but we're definitely not there. All right, I close those keys. Look at that little bit of wiggle there. So I gotta go a little further. Again, making my claw, putting it under the right hand cluster of keys. Thumb on the FC key, and I'm pressing that toward the body of the instrument. Check it again. Still gotta go a little more. And that's pretty good right there. So again, now we got those keys working together. Tapping that, but I cannot get that FC key to wiggle. If you happen to have a leak light, that can be really nice for something like this. So you can really check it out to dial it in here. And I can make sure that all the light goes away from both keys at exactly the same time. Now, say you don't have I don't know, this thing's like $120 or something like that. Maybe not the best investment to, not the best investment for a band director or something like this. That, how about a tool you can make for a few cents? I have my repair students at the college make these on the very first day. This is called a feeler gauge, okay? When I go to a Chinese restaurant, I take a big handful of chopsticks, and then you can take a Mylar balloon and cut off a little strip of it and glue it to the end there. How is that going to help us determine leaks? We're going to go by feel. I can put that between the pad and the tone hole, close the key, and then I can kind of yank it out in a pendulum motion. If I feel drag as I pull that out, I know the pad is contacting the tone hole and we don't have a leak there. If I can pull this out clean with no drag at all, then I know we've got a leak because the pad isn't contacting the tone hole right there, right? So I use some really fancy stuff. There's a company called JL Smith sells this feeler gauge material. It's extremely thin. It's much thinner than a Mylar balloon. For an educational setting, Mylar balloon is going to be just fine for you. Okay, there's no need to buy the special fancy stuff for that. For just making it work good enough to get through the concert, you know, get through the week, get through the rehearsal until you can get some time to go to the repair shop. Mylar balloon, super glued to the end of a chopstick is going to be a-okay for you for leak detection. Okay. Oh yeah, I like that kind of the cassette tape. Yes, cassette tape. Those of us who know what cassette tapes are, that works very well too. That's even thicker than the Mylar actually. So it's way better than nothing. Yeah, it's not going to tell you quite as much as a Mylar would, piece of Mylar would, just because the Mylar is much, much thinner. But yeah, a lot of people have used old cassette tapes too. Okay, move my bench mat out of the way here. I need a nice hard surface for this next one that I want to show you. So this is always a favorite. Anybody ever run into bent keys? Right? Yeah, you've probably run into bent keys, especially on your student's instrument. Kid will have the instrument, you know, and then something like this will happen. Oh no, we got a bent key now. Right? So yeah, that's gonna be a problem, right? Our E flat, B flat, it won't go down all the way because it's running into our F sharp trill key there. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do about that? Is that it? Game over? Got to go to the repair shop? Or can we do something about this? We can do something about this. This is what I would do. This is my preferred method here. This is called a duckbill Knipex pliers wrench. It is about $100 tool. It's really nice. This would be one of my #1 choices for a band director to have. This is the 7-inch model, so it's very adjustable. All right, get out all kinds of different size keys that I need to manipulate, and I can adjust the size of the tool to manipulate those keys. Also, it's smooth jaw in there, okay? Everywhere that's gonna touch the key, it's nice and smooth. If you wanted to get really fancy with this, I actually have another set that I just glued some Teflon to. So if I have like a brand new pristine instrument and I need to manipulate the key for some reason, I actually got Teflon glued to it. So it's not even gonna go metal on metal. 90% of the time, especially if it's a student instrument, the thing's already banged up. No need to no need to go with the Teflon. You're okay metal on metal since it's going to be a nice smooth surface. Again, this is the Knipex duckbill Knipex pliers wrench. So there it is. I'm seeing that backwards. I have no idea if you're seeing it backwards, but Knipex. I believe both Music Medic and JL Smith sell this tool. I get mine from Music Medic. They've got a few different choices for sizes. They've got this one too. This is the original Knipex pliers wrench. They seriously just take this one and they just grind out a bunch of the material so you can get the nose of the tool into even more tight spaces. So this is why this one's my go-to. Few bucks less. That's also a very good tool. It was my go-to for a decade or more as a repair technician. Then they figured out they could grind out all that extra material and it's still 93% as strong for the duckbill version. So losing virtually no strength. I can get it into more places. Yes, I like that. So that's going to be my go-to for that. So we need to straighten that. So it's simple enough, really. Here, let's see if we can do it with this angle. I'm just going to get my tool set up to the ideal size. I'm gonna take my time with this, right? Okay, I think that's pretty good. And let's see if I can do this. Is a very awkward angle for me, but I'll see if I can do it so you all can see what I'm doing. Okay, and I'm just going to undo what got done to it, straightening it out. And yes, we are back in business. Okay. Cool. You saved yourself a trip to the repair shop and 40 bucks right there. So yeah, do that about 2.5 times and this tool just paid for itself. Now, say this tool isn't in your budget, like it's not for most people. I don't blame you at all. Okay. Same problem, right? What are we going to do about that? The tool that if you're a band director, I guarantee you have this tool. Promise. I promise you already have this tool in your band room if you're a band director. What? I thought this was a clarinet clinic. What's he doing with a trumpet mouthpiece? Ah, it's like it was made for this. Most useful thing ever for a trumpet mouthpiece. Goes right. Oh my gosh, look at that. The shank goes right around the touch piece of the key. It's like it was made for it. Gently undo what got done to it. Hey, look at that. Back in business, right? So, yeah. So that's it's great. You know, it's nice. It's nice and smooth inside of there. It fits great. There's a couple of makes and models that will have a slightly bigger touch piece that's just the touch piece is just the part of the key that your finger contacts with there. You got a bigger one, okay, grab a baritone mouthpiece, grab a trombone mouthpiece, just grab something big enough to where you can get that in there. In a real pinch, I've done it on the A flat key here. That's a big old honking key. Tuba mouthpiece. I've done that once when I really had a similar problem with the throat A flat key right there. No. Okay. Like 14 of. I don't think I want to launch into a new one, to a new demo. Should we field some questions? And then if we run out of questions, I'll show you something else.
Sure, we had one at the very beginning about tape. Somebody had used Scotch tape. Is that something
okay.
that you would recommend if in a pinch?
Yeah, that's probably okay. Definitely wouldn't be my favorite thing, but you know, you gotta make the concert happen. I totally understand that you're gonna be very limited in what you've got. So it's not the worst thing. It's probably not gonna damage anything with the instrument. Probably be pretty hard to get that off. Once you get Scotch tape on something, it can be really difficult to get off. So it might be driving up your repair bill a little bit, or just taking more of your time if you're going to get all that completely cleaned off before you bring it into the repair shop. So maybe a couple of minor things that make me not like that, but definitely not the worst thing. Yeah, I'm certainly not offended by it or anything like that.
So I don't know if you're watching the chat. There's a couple questions.
Oh, God. Nope. No, sorry. Do you want to just pick some and tell me?
Sure.
Let's
yeah. See. Question: if you've worked with Guy Humphrey?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Jessica asked, are there a few items that you would recommend having on hand all the time for some or more problematic repairs, like springs or pads?
Yeah, totally. Yep, that's a really good one. And I can show you the pad thing real quick. I was going to show you a pad repair. That's actually something that was on my list a little bit later down here. I knew I'd have too much prepared. But yeah, if you've got like a torn pad, here's a little thing you can do. Go back to wherever I put that Teflon tape. Okay, so we're going back to our good old Teflon tape that we used to repair the tenon cork earlier. And I got a bag of scrap keys here. There we go. It's a random F sharp, C sharp key that I have no idea where that even came from. But say that pad is still in there, but it's getting pretty torn up. It's definitely not sealing at all. If it's a skin pad, the skin might be completely torn. A real quick fix to make that sort of closer to airtight is going to be take a little length of your Teflon tape here. And then this is a pretty big pad. It's going to be tied for the largest pad on the instrument. These are usually about 16 millimeters in diameter. So I'm going to sort of stretch out my Teflon tape a little bit here. And now I'm going to sort of give it a new skin. Okay. And draw that pretty tight on there. And then I just kind of twist it in the back. You can like make a knot or whatever you want to do to it. I just tore off the excess. But for a real emergency pad repair, you can tie that Teflon around there, and it just makes it a little closer to airtight. This is not a great option, but it's way better than the pad not working at all. So that's what I would do for pad repair. If the pad completely falls out, it's a sticky situation like right away, because you got to get heat involved. You don't want to damage the instrument. If you really wanted to take that on, I would recommend these glue pellets. So I get my mat back out here. You can probably see it pretty good on that. So those are amber melt pellets. JL Smith sells it. So if you wanted to replace an actual pad yourself, or if a pad fell out and you want to stick it back in yourself, I would definitely recommend these guys. I like the pellets because they're pretty much all the same size. And when you're dealing with a soprano clarinet, it's easy enough to remember about how many pellets you should use. Any pad in the upper joint of a soprano clarinet gets 1 pellet. Whole thing, all 11 pads on a typical upper joint of a soprano clarinet. 1 pellet is like the perfect size for 1 pad. Lower joint, the top 2 on the lower joint. So your 3-ring key and your banana key. So top 2 on the lower joint get 2. Bottom 4 on a soprano clarinet get 4. Not too bad to remember, right? Anything on the top joint gets 1. Top 2 on the lower joint get 2 pellets. Bottom 4 on the lower joint get 4 pellets. So that's just a starting point. Some companies make way bigger key cups, deeper key cups than others. But for just somewhere in an emergency, that's about how many pellets you're going to want to use. So these are amber melt pellets, and the company that sells them is J.L. Smith. Like the initials J.L. and then Smith is his last name. Website is jlsmithco, as in short for company.com. For emergency repair kit, some of these pellets for sure, to stick stuff back together. This super glue I showed you a little bit earlier, so notice that's actually super glue gel. Let's see, Ultra Gel Control. Pretty much any of these Loctite super glues, as long as it says gel on there somewhere, that's really good stuff. The little key cork falls off the instrument and you just need to stick it back on. This stuff is great for doing that. They sell it everywhere, every hardware store. The grocery store in Potsdam even stocks this stuff. So they've got it pretty much anywhere you can get it. So this is good for just miscellaneous sticking stuff back on. A roll of Teflon tape for sure. Let's see, something to unstick the pads. Powder paper is my go-to, but pretty much anything that's going to unstick it is going to do the trick for you. That's always good. And then some pliers to have in your kit for sure. Knipex pliers wrench if you can get them. If not, just something with smooth jaws. That's a very basic set of pliers that I did glue some Teflon to the inside so it doesn't mar the key. So some kind of pliers with a smooth jaw is very good. Screwdrivers, of course. So my screwdrivers are quite fancy. It's from a company called Kraus. They're still in business, but they stopped making pretty much all tools. They focus on supplies now. So it's almost like a collector's item. These are really nice screwdrivers, but it's probably overkill for an educator or performer because hopefully you're not fixing instruments too often. So something a little more affordable, I would recommend the screwdrivers that Music Medic sells. So there's one right there. I think where it's red, I just saw them at a conference. Instead of red, it's gold now. But just go to musicmedic.com, look up screwdrivers. These will be the ones. They come in like 5 or 6 different sizes. If you had that whole set, I think they're $12-13 a piece on average, much more affordable option. So yeah, a couple of the smallest ones. I believe Music Medic even has a pretty good chart on their website that say this one usually works for clarinet, this one usually works for saxophone. So you don't even need to buy all 6 in hopes of getting the right one. They're pretty good. You'd probably be okay with just 2 or 3 of them. Yeah, those would be my go-tos to have on hand. You never know what kind of problems the musical world's going to throw at us. So can't be prepared for everything, but those would be a couple of my go-tos for sure.
We have some questions about springs. Best tool for springs.
Sure, yeah. That's a
yeah.
Sorry, yeah, that's another one. I should have mentioned that for the toolkit for sure. A spring hook of some sort would be very, very good. I get this one from a company in Michigan called Freeze. I'm just really, really used to it, and it is a really nice one. It's for what it is, it's way too expensive. I've just gotten too used to it. I broke the one that I had all the way since repair school. Like a year ago, I had to get another one. I just could not get used to another one. For everybody else, I like Music Medics. You could buy, they sell them in 2 different sizes. They sell a medium and a large. You could buy them both for less than you could buy the Freeze one. So Music Medic one is really good, but I've seen people use an old crochet hook. That works pretty good. Spring hooks aren't terribly expensive. Might be, treat yourself, get a real spring hook. If you don't have one for some reason, crochet hook will do the job. But yeah, absolutely. So springs will pop out of their cradle all the time. Kind of check out the spring. It usually will give us a good clue as to where the spring wants to go, especially if clarinet or woodwinds in general aren't your main instrument. It can be tough to tell which side of the key that spring is supposed to go on. So kind of look at the spring like, okay, the spring wants to spring in that direction, right? So it probably should be on the other side of the key to make that key spring open. So I just use my hook to put it back in, and that key's springing open like it's supposed to be when it's not being touched. If you have an okay sense about what the keys are supposed to do, got a pretty good feel for what keys are closed when you're not touching them versus what keys are open when you're not touching them, there's a rule of thumb you can follow. The spring will be curved toward the tone hole if the key is open when you're not touching it. The spring will be curved away from the tone hole if the key is supposed to be closed when you're not touching it. Hopefully that made sense. So you could see that, here, I'll unhook it again. Okay, lowest key on the instrument, the EB key here, and that spring is going toward the tone hole. All right, it's not going away from the tone hole, going toward the tone hole. Whereas if I took off the banana key here, right, our alternate B F sharp key, we would see that this spring in here is going away from the tone hole because that key is closed when we're not touching it. Okay. So spring replacement, I probably couldn't even cover it all in an hour, honestly. Get creative with rubber bands is what you're gonna have to do if a spring is totally kaput till you get to the repair shop. But for a spring that's just popped out of its cradle, yeah, that'd be my advice. If you got yourself a decent spring hook and that spring is still intact, you can probably make it work. One
other question, aligning the bridge key, any tips?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a very good one. Another one that gets messed up, right? Being preventative is the best thing we can do here. I know not all the students will listen to you, but don't forget to remind them when they're putting the instrument together, look for the lowest ring on the upper joint, and you want to make sure you're pressing that down as you go to put the instrument together, and that's going to lift the bridge key. Okay, so remind them early and often. It's amazing how many students either don't get taught this or forget it somewhere along the line. So by lifting that, we're going to allow the bridge key there to not collide with the lower bridge that's attached to the 3-ring key there. Okay, so preventing that in the first place is the best option. Obviously, we're going to get issues with that. That thing can get bent pretty bad, and all it affects is the 1-in-1 fingerings. Everything else will be okay, but then, you know, the students learning some more advanced literature, there's a spot where they just got to do 1-in-1. They don't have any other choice. And the darn thing doesn't make any sound when you go to play that note. So it's almost always going to be under-regulated, which means the connection isn't as snug as it should be. And it's going to mean that the bridge key itself is flaring away from the body. Okay, that's going to be bent outward. Grab some smooth jaw pliers you can get in there. If you got your Knipex pliers wrench, duckbill Knipex pliers wrench, that's great. If you don't, just a more basic tool. I will grab the bridge key and then I will twist it toward the body of the instrument. Check early, check often with that. Because if you twist that a little bit too much toward the body of the instrument, anything involving the right hand isn't going to work. So it's not a big deal. If you go a little too far, get that same tool out, grab it, and flex it away from the body. Yeah, you can undo. If you overshoot it a little bit, not a big deal. Don't panic. Just think about it for a second. See, like, okay, if I twisted it too much toward the body, that means I got to twist it away from the body a little bit. I'm very confident you will be able to sort that out. Yeah, make sure you've got yourself some kind of smooth jaw plier for manipulating that.
And I know we're at time, but we had one person ask if you could re-demonstrate the claw technique again, just to make that one, and then we'll have to end there.
Sounds good. Okay. Screw that up a bit there. So, okay, back to the problem, right? These two keys should hit at the same time, but they're not. Okay, that one's just fine. That's your EB key. This one up here, your FC key. Check that wiggle, okay? Let's see, when I do this live, I usually just put my back to the audience. I'll see if I can do it and stay on camera here. So left hand, first finger, make the claw. Look for your cluster, your right hand pinky cluster, all right? Down toward the bottom of the instrument, these guys right here. Claw is going to get wedged between the body of the instrument and underneath that chunk of 4 keys right there. Once you've got that on there, right thumb on top of your FC key, and you're going to flex that toward the body of the instrument. All right, I am really pressing down with my right thumb here. Check it. We're closer, but we are not there. Same deal. Claw under the right hand pinky cluster. Right thumb on top of the FC key, and I am pushing the FC key toward the body of the instrument. They're going down at the same time. I'm tapping FC. I am getting no wiggle. I am happy with that.
Right.
Hope that helped. That's a tough one to do on the computer. I hope that helped.
Thank you so much, Miles. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, it's Miles' birthday. So happy birthday. And thank you for spending some time with us today. What a great.
Of course. No, thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for coming.
Absolutely. If anyone's interested in the ICA and you're not a member, please consider joining. If your students are interested, $10 for them to join up for a membership. So thank you again, Miles. We really appreciate it.
Cool. My pleasure.